So I saw a very interesting stat by Relationships Australia. And it basically said approximately 60% of people surveyed using dating apps and online sites. And of these people, only 25% of them found a long-term partner. What do you guys think of that?
So basically, just under half of them actually found potentials.
Of that 60% that actually uses those apps.
Oh, I would have. Oh, 60%. I actually think that sounds a little bit low. It's weird because I do think that generally when you hear about how many people use like Tinder and stuff like that, it's pretty like common. Like most people have at least used it once, unless they're totally against it. So that's a bit surprising that it's a bit low. And then of the 60%, only half of them.
25% even.
Oh, yeah, it's a little bit. Oh, that's a bit low.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, that is quite low.
Does that surprise you though?
Not really. I actually a little bit, because I feel like most people I know met their longtime partners on Tinder, and I was one of them. So, it's a bit weird to say now, but back then when we started talking about online dating, we'd be like, you wouldn't really be open as to how you met. But I think these days it's more common to meet on these types of apps. So yeah, I think it's quite normal, and I'm surprised that it's not higher. I think people are lying when they're doing these things.
For sure.
They're like, oh, I don't use it. They definitely use it every day. They just used it 5 seconds ago. So I'm not sure if I believe the statistics. Come on.
I mean, I am on your side on that, because they do say that in general around Australia, 35% of relationships actually do come from online dating. So I guess it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it worked for me. So, Well, I just thought it would be really cool to bring in an awesome friend of mine, James. He's going to come in and give us some insight on the dating world as a single man. Give us that spice. James is a PT, and yeah, he looks like a PT girls. So you might want to sign up. But yeah, thanks, James, for joining us today.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Great. So I guess we wanted to get some insight from you and know, do you use any of the dating apps out there?
Yeah, I think I'm like everyone. I go through phases of having them and not. I've downloaded it, I've lost count, honestly, probably like 20 times. And then it is a bit of I don't really particularly like using them, but I'm not going out as much lately. So unless you're in an environment where you're meeting people organically often, it's kind of leads to be one of the only ways to actually meet new people. So I'll go for stages and, have 2-3 months without it, and then 2-3 months with it, and then I'll get sick of it and delete it. And it's just a constant cycle, really. I think that's most people.
Right.
And are you kind of intentional with the apps that you do actually choose to sign up to or use?
I went through phases of having all of them, but then I feel like I'm trying to sort of slowly wean myself off social media in general. So then I feel like it's kind of hypocritical to then be on 4 different dating apps. You're just flicking windows constantly and just scouring all day, and your attention's just taken. I don't think they're a particularly healthy way to go about things, but as far as sort of opportunity, depending on what your work is, how you meet people organically, it's for a lot of people, maybe not particularly me, but for a lot of people, I can see how they might be one of the only avenues to try and date.
To get that connection. But so with the apps, is there like a particular one that you see as like something specific? So like, let's say for Tinder, you'd be like, oh, this is like the hookup app, or like Hinge is the I'm trying to be serious with my girlfriend app. Like, do you guys have that? Or?
I don't think so. I think originally it used to be Tinder was the one, wasn't it? It was
that's true.
If you were on Tinder, you were on there for one thing, and everyone knows what it was. Yeah. But I think now it's so much more. Well, like that stat alludes to, it's so much more prevalent among sort of all sections of society. But I think they've all sort of blended into one. There's going to be different people after different things on all of the apps. Yeah. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to the platform in particular, to be honest, at this point. But Hinge is the one that I like the most, because it gives you the actual information, that you can actually comment on what they've put rather than just purely a picture. It sort of forces you almost to, you have to fill in certain captions. So at least you get some information to go off.
Yeah.
Right.
And obviously, because you're the dude, you pretty much have to be the one to make the approach constantly. So it makes it easy for us.
know, poor boys working hard.
I know.
So when you're looking through these apps and like you're selecting that girl, like, do you have something in mind? Do you usually think like, okay, like, oh, I'm into, I don't know, brunettes with blue eyes or something, and then you like select based on that, or you're very like open? I feel like I've seen like some boys are very like, they'll say yes to everyone and then just see what works. Like, what's your strat? Do you have a strategy, or you
no,
just?
I think those guys are letting us down, honestly. Just swiping on any old thing. Like, it's obviously all you've got to go off is purely physical. It's not even like in-person pheromones, you know, where sometimes someone's got a bit of a allure to them. You can be attracted to certain characteristics in real life, whereas if it's just a picture, you're only going off pure physical attraction, aren't you, really? What you can see in that image. So, yeah, if I'm not attracted, obviously, that it's a no. And then if I am, then, you know, I have to look at their profile or whatever and try and... That's when it gets annoying as the guy, because you've got to try and suss something out that's going to make you stand out from all the rest of the crowd.
Yeah.
So I think with Hinge, like giving you some prompts, as opposed to Tinder, there's heaps of birds on there that are just like, they've got nothing, just pictures.
Yeah.
So like you've got
one.
nothing to go off to even start a conversation except hey, which, you know, I'm sure they get hundreds of those a day. So it's not very original.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you mention just appearance when you're on online dating, but don't you feel like when you do meet someone organically, you do actually look at their attractiveness? You know.
So I think it can be different. Yeah, like I'm a believer in sort of pheromones. You know, like sometimes there's that indescribable thing that you're not actually sure what you're attracted to, but it's there. And I've heard, it's very anecdotal, but how many times have you heard people say like, it's not even my normal type, or she's not my normal type. There's just something about them. Mm-hmm. So you're completely bypassing that section, and it can work the other way as well. You know, you can be attracted to them on pictures, and then you meet them in real, and you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm just not into it. I thought I would be, sort of thing. So there's definitely, you can get slipped up with the dating apps for sure. I would prefer to sort of meet someone organically, but you know, there's that many people on dating apps that statistically there's bound to be some good people out there, obviously. So
it's really interesting, because I was reading somewhere and they were saying that like particularly I don't know if you would call it the Gen Zs. I can't remember who was, but what generation is before Gen Z?
Why?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, they were basically saying that like that generation and Gen Z is generally quite superficial, that people feel bad for us now because we're purely just going off based on, oh, this person looks hot, like without really going through the stages of like, oh, this person's come up to meet me, blah blah blah. Like, you know how you get like nervous and jittery when someone comes to approach you. Now it's just like, oh yeah, does this person look hot, and it's based off what you're seeing online. So people are saying that they feel bad for us now that we're probably meeting quite a few people that are probably not actually suited to us, because we're just going based off whether they look hot or not.
Yeah.
Or based on what they post on social media, not really how they look in real life and how they approach you or speak to you when you actually meet them. Mm-hmm. Which is, it's a little bit, it's a bit concerning. Yeah, because we spend so much time on our phones, and like I was saying earlier, like quite a lot of us have probably actually been on some of these dating apps and experienced some pretty shitty times.
Some good, some bad.
Yeah.
Some ugly, some scary. Yeah, that's it. Well, what about you, James? Like, because, okay, I'm going to give you a compliment. I hate giving people compliments, guys. I'm very selfish with them. But you're a good looking guy. So like, do you find that girls like expect something specific from you? Like, do they like assume you're going to be a certain type of way? Do you feel like, your imagery, does it sort of impact how people treat you?
I don't know how to answer that, because like, I suppose it depends on what type of girls you're going for. I think everyone on dating apps is probably, you know, you're trying to shoot for the best you can get looks wise, because that's all you've really got to go off, you know, unless there's something exceptionally interesting in the bio or whatever. But, you know, for all I know, I might be trying to talk to girls that are like looking at me thinking, oh, he's not up to my standards. Do you know what I mean? So like you don't know how you're actually perceived or sort of ranked, if you want to put it that way, you know, because you know every good-looking girl on dating sites has got hundreds of matches. Like it's pretty. All you got to do is just they select who they want to talk to. It's kind of all the powers. It's mostly in the female side, I would say, when it comes to online dating, particularly. So it's a bit of a role reversal from what we're sort of traditionally used to, maybe.
That's an interesting point, because if we flip it to social media like Facebook or Instagram, I've actually seen a lot of very attractive women say that no one actually DMs them because they all assume that they get so many DMs. So they're
Wasting
just like,
time,
no one
essentially.
actually reaches out to me.
Yeah.
My DMs are pretty empty.
But you hear that a lot in bars, don't you? I've heard heaps of really good-looking women say, no one comes up to me. Because I suppose guys would be intimidated. Like, you know, you don't want to be seen to be publicly rejected in a big bar by the hottest girl there, and it just goes down like an absolute turd sandwich. So, yeah, it's the same thing.
Oh,
just carried
interesting. So
online.
if guys come up to you, maybe not as hot as you think, is that what we're going with?
Yeah, maybe they're looking at you as like a realistic
Oh,
shot.
damn. Okay, look, if any guy approaches me, I will stab them. Like, stay away from me, no. No, that's an interesting point as well. Do you feel like social media and sort of Tinder, all that kind of stuff puts pressure on relationships and how they need to look like or be like or feel like? Do you feel like it puts like this sort of image in your head as to what the relationship should look like based on the imagery that you as an individual has put out to the world?
Yeah, to a degree, but I think more and more people are becoming aware that it's mostly a fallacy, isn't it? Like what you post on Instagram particularly is just, you've got no real marker of knowing if that's their true life and if they're really enjoying it as much as they look like they're enjoying it. Everyone's posting their edited best versions of their life in an effort to try and be, you know, seen as high social standing, and you know, you're not going to show them your down bits, are you? Where you sat at home depressed after a breakup eating Cheetos. So you're trying to show the best part to the world. But yeah, it can be a bit corrosive, I suppose. You know, if that's, you're constantly seeking validation that way. And I know people that they get weird if they don't get as many likes as the previous post and that sort of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it can be quite a poisonous thing, to be honest, I think, in that capacity.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because I think this was particularly when I was like late teens. Yeah, I would say late teens. I was definitely like one of those ones where it's like, oh, like using the likes and stuff like that as a validation for how I see myself. Like, oh, do I think that I'm attractive or not, blah, blah, blah. And then also comparing that to other people as well. Like, and then, yeah, sometimes it does kind of play a bit of a trick in your head. Like, oh, am I really that good? Do other people actually find me attractive? Which is, it's quite dangerous as well.
And that's what dating is to a certain extent too. It's someone's basically telling you you're attractive or you're not, so I will approach you, I will not approach you. So yeah, it's a tricky one. But do you think the rise of social media actually does make it easier for people to meet and find partners? I mean, you did say, for example, with a really attractive person, people might be scared to approach them in person, so meeting them organically might be a bit tricky.
Yeah.
But even with some attractive people online, no one really wants to message them because you just don't want to be rejected. Or so does it really make it easier? Or
I don't know. It's hard. You'd have to know sort of exactly what you're comparing it to, because 50 years ago, I suppose, everyone was married by the time they were 25. You know, did they meet each other in working men's clubs and pubs and stuff like back home? And you know, people settled a lot earlier, but they're obviously meeting people some way. I think it's just migrated essentially to, it's more availability online, but then so is the sort of competition. You know, you get people observing people from across the world, and it's they're unfavorably comparing themselves to people, you know, with like ridiculous body fat percentages for one, you know, like people with their kit off all the time, and then it comes into the aspects of like, you know, the negative self-image that a lot of people have, probably because you're comparing yourself constantly to like the top echelons, you know, the fittest people in the world, that are these genetic anomalies that you don't even see walking around normally. So
Well, what about the use of like different apps? Like, you know how, okay, we understand, okay, we're going to use Tinder, Hinge, all that. That's specifically for dating. But then like I got an inbox the other day in my LinkedIn saying like, hey boo, want to meet up? You're looking fine. Like, and I was like, it's LinkedIn, guys. Like, is that a thing? Like, it's a professional page, in my opinion. So like, what do you think? Do you think it's like fair go? Like if you bump into someone you're attracted to, no matter what like social media avenue it is, do you feel like it's a yes go for it and try your luck, or is it stay away?
It's a bit of both, isn't it? Like I agree with you. It came about as like a professional service, didn't it? To find people with suitable requirements for your job roles, and but it is sort of still built on that social following, you know, and who you follow and this and that. And you're always going to have people, I think, that are opportunists, you know, that if they see someone they're attracted to and they're like, oh, maybe she's not had many messages on LinkedIn. Maybe, you know, I'll shoot to the top of the list on this one. So
yeah, maybe he thought it was a good idea because like I could look at his like little credentials or something. I don't know. Maybe that's something that people like boys need to think about and maybe do that with some other girls. Not me, though.
Yeah, I did see someone post about that on not your particular situation, but just that whole situation on LinkedIn. Basically saying that it's actually very disrespectful, like to use LinkedIn, a professional platform, for dating or picking up women. And I mean, when you actually think about it, if you are in a professional setting and someone just walks up to you and is like, hey, you want to go for drinks or you want to come over?
Yeah, that's a bit weird.
You would actually be insulted. I would be.
But you know what it is as well? Like, I feel like you would be more insulted if it was someone you're not attracted to. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's a little bit of an element of like, you know, if you're attracted to that person, you'll allow it. Like, you'll be like, it's a bit weird, but also like, he was so brave to do that in a professional setting. like I feel like we give ourselves we give specific people like a leeway and other people not.
that double standard's in everything, I think, isn't it? I can't remember the quote, but I remember seeing some quote and it was like, basically it was saying that two guys could say the exact same thing. One could be perceived as like gross and so true, out of, you know, just disgusting, and the other guy's like, oh, he's so charming, like really witty, so cheeky.
Yeah.
You know, like, just purely based on if you're attracted to them or not. So yeah, it's
we did actually have an episode on double standards, so go and watch the episode to talk about this. But yeah, that's actually true. That's a really good point, that you might actually favor the one that you're actually attracted to and be like, oh my god, he messaged me.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's someone you're not, you'll be like, what the hell?
I think they've actually done studies, and good-looking privilege is like a real thing. You know, they're rated as like more trustworthy, like funnier, and it seems to be a genuine thing. Like they're not just laughing along because they're attractive. Well, they are to a degree, but like they're actually genuinely perceived as smarter, funnier, more trustworthy, all the positive traits, just purely because they've got a nice symmetrical face.
Oh, yes. No, I believe that because, you know, like the days that I go out and I'm just like, oh, just gonna wear my tracksuit pants and just like put my hair in a bun and call it a day. That no one's that nice to me. But as soon as I've got my makeup on, my lashes on, like everyone's so nice. Oh, are you okay, babe? Do you want me to open the? I'm like, who are you people? Like, where were you when I was wearing my tracksuit? So I just think, for sure, there's pretty privilege, and like I think that's why, like, especially as African women, we put so much effort into like what we look like when we go outside, because that's also something we've been brought up with as well. So I don't know, like for you as a boy, like do you guys have like a specific thing that you guys do when you want to get ready and get spicy?
You love that word, don't you?
I do love spicy.
No, like my main job's like building boats, so most of the time I'm walking around, you know, with dust all over me, like not looking particularly good at all. But it is easier for guys as well, you know, like if you train and stuff, generally all nice fitting clothes is kind of all you need to do. You don't need to put that much effort in, really. Like all the stuff I'm wearing is from Cotton On, I think, just like cheapy clothes. But women, I think, have got a, you know, or at least they're expected to get dressed up more, and you know how much you guys spend on like just going to the your various beauty salon treatments for nails and this and that. You've got to sort of put a lot more effort in than we do.
Ooh, what's your estimate for like how much you think like we spend?
Oh, which service?
Okay, let's do nails. Like
it's $200, isn't it, for your nails?
Well, those are some really nice nails.
It's just I think it's just under 100 like for nails, like for feet and hands.
Your hair can be hundreds, can't it? Depending on
hair is like 1,000. I don't even want to talk about it. So no, definitely. So I guess when you do go on those dates, like let's say you meet someone on Tinder or Hinge or something, and you go on those dates, do you find it difficult to like push the relationship to something substantial, or do you feel like, you know, because you met on that platform, you're always like surface level? Like how does it go for you?
I suppose it depends on what you're actually searching for on there. I'm sort of like very open at the minute. Like I've got a very good group of friends. Like I'm not in any particular rush to settle down, but I'm not on there to sleep around either. I used to be, but like, yeah, I think what you want sort of changes over time. So like there's been plenty of dates I've been on where it's just there's not been the sort of attraction there that I wanted. So, you know, we just ended it with a friendly conversation sort of thing. So like, it's not like I'm just trying to knock off everyone I meet.
Are you sure? No.
I used to be like that when I was younger, but I'm not anymore.
You're like, disclaimer.
Yeah. So, no, it just depends on what you want out of that person. I think let it organically evolve. I keep using that word, but yeah, like you can get different things out of different people. It might just be, you know, you might end up being good friends out of it. You might make an acquaintance through them. Right. You could end up marrying them, and the whole sort of gauntlet. I feel like putting that pressure on right from the start is almost setting yourself up to fail. If you're like, you know, I want to meet my husband on here or whatever.
Right.
So you might meet them 10 times before something starts developing. Right. So I suppose just being open to it and like honest with what you actually want out of it helps. Although I realise I'm being quite ambiguous about what I want out of it. It depends on the person.
Yeah. So okay, that's interesting because I definitely know a few times like when you're on Tinder or whatever, and not necessarily everyone is going there to hook up with people, right? Like some people just actually might find you attractive and think, oh, you know, I actually could potentially date this person. Yeah. But then so you're going with that perception, but then there's the people that definitely are like strictly just going on there to hook up with people. Like how do you think you can navigate that when there's the group of people that have that idea of, no, I'm just hooking up with you, like on this app, there's absolutely nothing further than that. But then you have those people that are open to, you know, seeing how, like where it might go. And that necessarily might not be just hooking up.
Yeah, you really don't know, do you? You don't know until you've met them. And even then, they can still be lying to you. So it's like, you sort of have to just be as honest as you can be about what you're after. Yeah. But, you know, if you don't really have a particular thing in mind, like, oh, I'll just see what happens. It sounds, from a chick's perspective, I'm assuming it would normally sound like, oh, you just want to just knock your tally up somewhat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's how it would be perceived.
That's exactly what I would think if someone gave me that line. I'd be like, yeah, right.
Exactly.
I've been trying to like work out how I can word it better. That is like the genuine thing. But
so don't use that wording.
Yeah, I need to refine it, obviously.
Yeah, a little bit of a brainstorm session.
But do you feel like also with dating online, having options presents as a challenge when you're looking for something substantial?
Yeah, well, I think everyone is aware, aren't they, that like it's just a finger swipe, it's just a swipe away, really. Like how many times have people, you know, in a couple had an argument and then one of them's gone out in a bad mood, and the person that's left at home is not normally going to be in a, you know, comfortable mind frame around that if their partner's seeing they've had an argument and they're out. And that's, yeah, especially because if that's what you're after, you'll find plenty of people on there that you can just sort of hook up straight away. Yeah. I think that's where a lot of the power goes back to the women as well these days. Whereas if that's what they decide they want, they've got so many options. They can just basically go you, and you know, and just sort of go on a date with someone, and they'll definitely find a dude that's willing to give them anything they want, basically. Yeah. So,
so we hold the power
to a degree. Yeah, I would say
we hold the cards, girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing that you brought about the options, because sometimes I do think, because, you know, basically you can meet someone at, you know, your fingertips these days. How do we ensure that we actually continue to have, you know, genuine relationships with people and not be worried about like, oh, you know, maybe I haven't actually met maybe the person I'm with right now isn't actually the person I'm supposed to be with, because there are so many options out there. I can just go on Tinder and, you know, maybe I might find like the person that I'm supposed to be with on Tinder, but like I'm, you know, I don't want to say settling, but like I'm with the person that I'm with right now. Like I do find that the options thing can be a little bit scary at times.
Yeah. It definitely can be, can't it? The grass is always greener. Like everyone's aware of that saying, and it can apply to almost anything, whether it's like your job, where you're living, definitely relationships. And if you know that you can download Tinder and just swipe, and within a couple of hours you've got hundreds of matches. Yeah. it's definitely going to play on your psyche. I don't think we were evolved to deal with that, really, were we?
Yeah, that's actually true. I don't
Yeah.
think. Yeah, it's really crazy.
It's
Yeah.
such a new thing that we'd have to actually catch up to. Okay, what does this really mean?
Yeah.
And I do wonder for those people that do meet on online dating websites, when you do actually get into the relationship, does it feel organic, or does it feel like any other normal relationship, or you kind of like, this was unnatural?
I think once you know them enough, it would become natural. Like, yeah, it kind of lost a bit of its stigma, hasn't it? The first time I went on online dating was because I'm 33, and I remember like something preceding Facebook called, I think it's called Face Party, and it was like the same sort of thing, but obviously it never took off as much. But it was like a dating site, and you just scoured people, and you'd write them a message, and that was like my first experience of sort of online dating. And back then it was weird. Like you wouldn't really advertise that, we met online. People would think you were a complete weirdo.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's obviously changed a lot since then, so it's kind of, it's perceived as more normal. Like it's not, I'd say there's almost no stigma attached to it at all now these days, personally.
Why do you think there was a stigma about it? Like, just about online dating in general. Why was it so like,
I think they were, from my memory, I mean, I was a lot younger then, so I probably wasn't as aware of the sort of societal context of it, but it seemed to me that it was kind of like the loser's version of, if you can't get a girlfriend normally, or you having to resort to online, you're scrolling through a database because you're that inept. So, so it was weird. The first, I met a girl on there, and we sort of saw each other briefly. But yeah, we didn't sort of tell our parents that that's how we met. I think she made up some completely fabricated a story altogether about meeting me through a friend of a friend. Just did not want to mention it.
That's definitely an interesting one, because I remember like watching the TV ads, and they would talk about like eHarmony and things like that, and all the ads were always like old people like, find your love on eHarmony, and it made it sound so like sad, like
You used to get them in newspapers.
Oh,
Scroll to the back of the newspaper, and it'll be like 34-year-old lawyer seeks
true.
voluptuous brown-haired beauty,
Whoa.
whatever.
I do remember seeing those ads.
I wonder if they ever worked. Like, someone actually read that and was like, that's for me.
Yeah.
Call in.
Well, it says the word lawyer, I might be like.
And I do wonder if with online dating, if it's just a thing more so in the Western world, because another thing that I feel like correlates a little bit with it is, with the Western world, there is like a loneliness epidemic as well. So people are not as easily sociable in person. We're more like, we live in an online world. So I think you'll find online dating is a bigger thing in Australia, in America, in the UK. But if you go back home to Africa or some Asian countries or whatever, it's just not as common to be online dating.
That's
like true. People, your aunties will find somebody for you by force. Like so
That's so true, actually.
I wonder why it's more, well, I feel like I know why, but what do you guys think is the reason why it's so much more common and normalized over here?
Over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a cultural thing as well, because if I like go back into like, okay, when I'm in Nigeria, everyone is so connected, like everyone knows each other as like aunties, uncles, twice removed. Like, so everyone's really connected there, and everyone's also very open, and it's like a requirement to greet people. In my culture, like you can't walk past someone without like doing the full blown like kneeling on the ground. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma. That kind of energy. So I think like that element of like being connected is what helps us like in, let's say, Nigeria to maybe not rely so much on the online dating thing. Maybe it's also like an infrastructure thing, but then I feel like people are on social media a lot in Nigeria, for example. So I think it's also safety, right? Safety is an element as well. Like, I don't know if I'd be as comfortable doing that in Nigeria, just because like if I go missing, like how long? Do you know what I mean? Like, at least Australia would be like, oh, on the ball, like, 000, and then, someone will try come save me. Whereas Nigeria, I feel like it'll be a bit of a process.
Yeah.
Like maybe like in a couple of months they'll like find me, So I think it's like a safety element for me as well if I had to live there.
Yeah.
I think, you know what? I think I'm going to take a different spin on this one. And this might be a bit of a spicy comment, but
Spill it out.
I do think that sometimes back in Africa, guys are a little bit more forthcoming as well. Like I feel like they don't really need to be on social, like, sorry, but they don't really need to be on like sliding into the DMs. Like if they like you and you're on the street, they'll come up to you and say that they like, and they don't give a damn. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't care about, well, I don't think they care about the rejection, because a lot of the time they're so forthcoming anyway. So you think like, oh, I don't think this person really cares. I think they just want to know, like they're just going to shoot their shot regardless. So I don't really think that they need to be doing the swipe, because they know eventually once they are on the street, maybe 5 might reject them, but like 5 others will probably accept them anyway.
Yeah.
So, and that's just in the span of them maybe walking 200 meters. They don't even need to get on their phone.
It's
So
playing the numbers game.
yeah.
It's a legit tactic.
Yeah. I think in some ways, I think that maybe they feel like they might not need to resort to that to meet people. I think in some instances, and I know I'm generalizing a little bit, but they are a bit more like forthcoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do wonder also over here, I think we're a lot more individualistic in terms of community, like everybody to themselves,
Yeah.
your own little family, the end.
Yeah.
Like, whereas back home, like, everybody's auntie. We all share our aunties. And, like, once you reach this age, everybody's trying to find you a partner.
Yeah.
So even though we reject it now, we're like, perfectly capable of doing that alone. But James, in your experience, have you ever seen that other perspective of things where, I guess, online dating is not very accepted, and it's more so like you must find someone organically, like?
Yeah, I don't think it is anymore. Like back home, it's pretty much the same culture as Australia, really. But yeah, amongst the older generations, like, my nan, for instance, she's dead now, but she would have, I can totally imagine her response. She'd be like, online? What do you mean? Like, she'd find it completely baffling.
Yeah.
But when she was raised, it sounds almost similar to Africa. In certain parts, like it was a lot more of a community thing.
Yeah.
Like you worked with everyone that you also lived around, and you sort of met people through friends of friends. They didn't have that opportunity, and that's most of human history, isn't it? Really, the vast majority of it. That's how it happened.
Yeah.
Some of this weird last 20 years where it's online has become a thing, and our brains can't really keep up with what to do with it.
Yeah.
It's not what we were it's not the environment we were evolved for.
No.
Yeah. So in this segment, we're going to do a few scenario-based questions and get our feel for how we would deal with these situations. So we are calling this segment Swipe Yes or No. And obviously yes is like, you would pursue the person. No, the person's going in the dustbin. So first question. Yeah, the person that you match with, you find out that she has an on-again, off-again boyfriend, right? But she's on Tinder. What would you do if she's disclosed that to you, like when you first start talking?
Presuming they're on an off phase when...
It could be on today, off tomorrow,
I think it's a bit of a warning sign, isn't it? Like it's probably smart to not invest your time and get involved with someone that might be in this situation. But I mean, it depends on what she's after and what I'm sort of after at the time, and but yeah, I think in general that's a bit of a red flag.
So is
it's
that
not someone?
What are you swiping?
So you're swiping
it's
a no.
just simple yes or no, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not having a picture of this person in front of me, I'll just have to say no.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. Dara, what would you do?
Huh? Me? I'd probably... Yeah, I think I'd have to swipe no, hey. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I have so much like self-belief in myself, and I feel like I'm too fly for this drama. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe in putting myself in situations where I'm gonna be uncomfortable or make someone else uncomfortable, and I don't even want a third party involved for any reason. I feel like that's the kind of situation that would occur. So it's a big no for me.
No.
Sophie, give us a scenario.
Okay, so you are on whatever social dating site and you find a girl that you really, really, really like, and you take her out on a date, and then, you know, you're talking about what you both want, and then she reveals to you that she's bisexual and she also is exploring the other side of her sexuality. Would you proceed?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel like that's like.
Wait, why are you saying differently? Why did you say it like that?
Oh, because yeah. It would, like, I don't know. I've
Shoot
not
your
been in
shot.
that situation. Maybe it would take having a chick stolen from me by another chick for me to be like,
Yeah.
this is a real threat here. But since I have no experience with that particular scenario, I feel like as a dude, you know, most guys have got that sort of like, you know, oh, I imagine my missus bringing another girl home and that sort of thing. Like, I don't think it's genuinely seen as a threat. It's almost like, I know people that wouldn't even class it as cheating. You know, if their girl, like, say if she kissed a friend at a bar, you're not going to be I don't think you're going to be upset about that. So obviously there's different degrees of relationship. If she's actually in love with some other chick and like spending more time with them, that's one thing. But if you just had sort of like bisexual tendencies, I wouldn't care. I'd quite like it.
So it's a big
Quite
yes.
like it.
Yeah.
Quite like it. But what
As
if
long as she doesn't leave me for it.
yeah, because
I can't predict that.
But what if it's like, you know, she's saying like, oh, but it's going to be a separate entity, like as in there's another girl.
Oh, so
and the other girl, I'm spending a separate time. Like you're never going to meet the other girl. You know what I mean?
So I'm like just
You're the
one
extra.
Or two,
Yeah,
essentially.
you're one or two or something. Like
Yeah.
an extra or something.
Oh,
like a
well,
sidekick.
I mean, if we just got on really well and, you know, having a good time, I wouldn't see a problem with it. But obviously, if you really like them and you wanted to go, you know, do something serious with them, yeah, that would be obviously. There's going to have to be an issue, isn't it? If you're splitting your time, okay, off you go now. I'm seeing my other gendered friend. Yeah,
Yeah, then
that'd be a no-go. Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting.
What do you do, Tayo, in the vice versa situation?
See, I don't really know if I'm gonna be down with that. See, the only the only thing is, okay, so just want to check, so are we like just in the dating phase or just in the talking phase, or we're actually
So you've been talking on the social media side, and now you are on your date, and then he reveals to you, look, I like you too, but I am also exploring my other side to see my options.
See, it's the options is the thing that's because I don't know, I feel like I actually think I've seen some of those situations where the person has like later then disclosed that they, you know, like either gender, and then I kind of like think sometimes like, oh, so like when you're bored of me, are you just gonna switch over to the other one? Like that's the thing that's gonna be in my head. Like, how do I know that you definitely are interested in me, and then not like, oh, if I do something that's like boring, then you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna go over to the other side. Like,
So you need a guarantee.
yeah, I do. I need to know that, okay, I'm just the one that needs to fight for the
you're only
attention.
fighting against the girls
exactly.
instead of fighting against the girls
and
and
against
boys.
both. Like that's that's a lot. I think it can be a lot, especially if they like fully like they like either or, like 50-50. Like it's not like there's like a more preference for one. Yeah.
I have
don't
a
know.
question for all of you in regards to this.
Okay.
I feel like on average, you're going to have, I think the vast majority of girls, if that guy was like, oh yeah, I'm seeing you, but I also like dudes as well, I think the vast majority of them are going to be, presuming they're straight, they're going to be put off by that.
Yeah.
Whereas I think there's going to be a
that
lot
is
more
true.
dudes willing to put up with it. Because they
Yeah.
probably go, oh, it's some weird little fantasy. Oh,
Yeah,
she's seeing some bird.
that's
Oh,
so
yeah, I can do
true.
that. They don't realise they've not fully thought through the potential implications.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just thinking like, oh, that's gonna look hot, and like it's something like, you know, exciting to tell your friends, like, oh yeah, my girl made out with some other girl. But yeah, for sure, like, yeah, it's interesting, yeah. But we as girls struggle to accept it when a guy is like hooking up with other guys, and we're just like, yeah, we're done. Like it's not
Yeah.
really an option. So I think that's something we need to like internally, decide if it's the right perspective to have. But but yeah, like traditionally, yes, I would struggle, honestly. Like if my guy was saying that he's going to make out with other guys, maybe I think that would worry me a little bit more than I guess it would worry you, James, obviously. So yeah, so I've got a final scenario. So let's say you're speaking to someone and you like fall head over heels for this girl and she's like amazing, and then she tells you that, you know, she actually wants an open relationship and a polygamous sort of relationship where she can bring in more guys, whereas you can't bring any girls in.
No, 100%
Oh.
no, yeah. So I'm going to sign myself up to that like one-sided relationship. But I thought you were going to ask just a normal open relationship, which I would potentially consider depending on a lot of other variables. But if it was one rule for me and a way better rule for her, no.
But then don't you feel like that happens a lot though? Like I feel like there's a lot, maybe not a lot, but I feel like there's a lot more guys who would be able to say that with their chest, and girls would maybe accept that a bit more. Like they'd be like, oh, okay, like fine, I can be your side chick or whatever it is. Like I feel like girls maybe for some reason accept that a little bit more, and I don't know if it's a cultural thing, I don't know what it is, but it feels like we're very forgiving, whereas guys are like, I'm not sharing, but you're happy to be shared. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you're happy to have the girls, like the extra girls, but you're not happy to be the extra boy.
Yeah. I always heard it comes back to like back in the caveman days, like, you know, there's that theory of women are generally more upset if their partner's cheating and they're emotionally involved with someone.
Right.
I've heard it said that women are far more likely to forgive their partner if they've just had a one-night sexual fling with someone versus falling in love with someone. Whereas for men, it's kind of the opposite. It's kind of like, you know, you'd almost be less pissed off if she was in love with some guy but she'd not had sex with him.
Right.
Whereas if she's been getting railed in the office by the boss, you'd be way more crisp.
Oh, that's really specific. Do you have a story to tell us?
No.
No.
Just news clippings. But supposedly it comes back to like the implications for that. So like if your partner, and she's a female, was cheating on you sexually, then you're in like very real danger of her having someone else's kid and you're raising it and pouring your resources into it.
Right.
So from like an evolutionary point of view, that's supposed to be, it's way worse for you because you're wasting your resources on someone else's offspring. Whereas from the women's point of view, if it doesn't really matter to you if he's just had sex with some chick over in the next village. Whereas if he's falling in love with someone, it's a higher risk that they might, you know, he might basically give all his time to this rival woman of yours, and then you're not going to be able to have the food. I'm talking like obviously caveman days here. It's a different era now, but like I think that some of this stuff is still like very much ingrained subconsciously in our brains, and it's playing little tugs of war, but we're not even really aware it's happening.
Yeah.
So I think that's partly explains some double standards that are just always seem to have been there.
Yeah.
Because there's different evolutionary pressures for males and females.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, though, that we are changing as a society. We are exploring all our options, and people are finding love. A lot of people are entering beautiful marriages out of meeting online. So, but it was really interesting hearing James's perspectives and really exploring this topic further. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
And thanks, James, for being here. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, James.
Thanks for having me.